Hello, the name is Regis Kilbin, and the game is Hearthstone. And today I'm going to be doing a little play session of my TGT Budget Warlock deck. I recently made a guide for this deck, and I've had some requests to see it in action, so we're going to do a little learn to play, see if we can play a few games of this deck, essentially learn how to mulligan, make gameplay decisions, and take ourselves down different gameplay paths and see which ones are right and which ones are wrong. I'm going to give you a little time here to check out the deck list. I'll put the link for the deck in the description below as well, but it's a good idea to understand the deck. This is essentially a really super budget zoo warlock deck that was crafted for 600 dust or less, meaning there are some interesting card choices. Everything's affordable, nothing is rare, everything is common or free. So you might see some unusual stuff if you're a more experienced player, but if you're a beginner, this deck should work great for you. It's very affordable to craft, and it still packs a little bit of a punch. So we're going to go ahead and take this deck out into action. I'm going to play it in casual mode. I don't know that it's quite ready for ranked. It's still the beginning of the season, so rank 15 players are still legend level players, or very close to legend level players, and that's not the environment this deck is designed for. This deck is designed for someone to play from rank 25 up to rank 15 or so. But the rank 15 at the beginning of the season, of course, is different than the rank 15 in the middle or end of the season once players have climbed out of those levels. So I think casual will give us a better environment to see this deck in action. Now that said, do keep in mind my MMR is higher than a beginner player's, and I will likely be playing against people who have similar MMRs based on Blizzard's hidden matchmaking system. So we might be seeing some powerful top meta decks, and it might be harder than average to get a win compared to what you'd see from ranks 25 to 15 if you were to play this deck. So regarding this mulligan, we're playing against a warlock. I have no idea whether it's going to be a late game warlock or another early game warlock like myself, but I know I don't need Acidic Swamp Ooze because it's not a weapon class. 4-drop is way too slow for this deck. We need to get minions out onto the board as quickly as possible. Similarly, that 5-drop is way too slow. So Wrathguard is a good option to keep here. It's nice to have at least one 2-drop. Okay, so we're 1-0. Looks like I took too long in the mulligan while describing my decisions, and it might have frustrated that guy. So sorry about that, friendly opponent, but we're streaming and we want to make some notes. As I was saying anyway, we want to have at least one 2-drop so we know that we get something playable. We're looking for those 1-drops, Flame Imp and Voidwalker, but it's okay to keep a 2-drop if you don't have anything 1-drop. Because you want to be sure you have at least a fallback on turn 2, or if you have the coin, in particular like we did there, you can go ahead and play that minion on the first turn too, depending on what you get in the rest of the mulligan. We didn't see our mulligan, so that's unfortunate. Now we got a mage. Okay, so this is a good learning opportunity. We don't have the coin. Some people might say, oh, we'll keep Soulfire. It's a 1-drop. If you're a beginner to the game, you want to have a card to play on the first turn, and I keep that Soulfire. Unfortunately, Soulfire is terrible for us to have on turn 1. We want to save that 4 damage for something more meaningful, like getting lethal at the end of the game, or clearing a really annoying taunt minion. So, plus it discards cards in your hand, so that's the worst thing you want, is at the beginning of the game to have fewer options and less cards in your hand. So Soulfire, despite being 1-drop, is actually terrible. 3-drops are too slow, so we're going to hope and pray that we get a 1 or a 2-drop out of this mulligan. If not, we might be in a little bit of trouble. But we can't afford to keep a 3-drop. So see here, we actually have a terrible opening hand. We didn't get a 2-drop or a functional 1-drop, and we got that Soulfire back. So this is one of the downsides. If you don't get those early board presence minions, you can be in trouble. Power Overwhelming is literally unplayable, and we wouldn't want to play it on turn 1 anyway if we could. Soulfire again, there's no value in hitting the enemy's face with that, so it's a shame we drew that even though we mulliganed it away. Okay, so see, this is a nice saving grace. It's a turn late, but still it's a 3-2 body on turn 2. Very reasonable, helps us start building our board. We have a follow-up in the next turn with Argent Horse Rider, so we can start doing things now. So he had the answer. Unfortunately, this looks like it's going to be a Tempo Mage who has lots of different ways to clear minions, so we may have trouble stabilizing a board. If he drops something like a Flame Waker and then coins into Arcane Missiles or any other spell, this is probably going to get cleared from the Flame Waker pings and we'll be in trouble. If this doesn't stick this turn, it's going to be very hard for us to recover. If he's a freeze mage, things might look a little different, but we'll have to wait and see. Okay, so that's a good sign. He pinged. That suggests he didn't have a way to clear this, and hero power on turn 3 is an extremely inefficient way for him to use mana. He only took care of half a card for 3 mana. Even though he only spent 2, he used 3, right? Because he didn't use that spare mana, so it's just a total waste. We have a great follow-up on turn 4 with Paladin Shredder, one of the best 4-drops in the entire game. So right now, despite getting off to a little bit of a slow start, it's starting to look up. He still has to find a way to deal with this. If he pings again, he's using so much mana. He used 4, or essentially 5 mana to kill off that thing. Okay, that's a good drop to get. Okay, so here we actually have some choices, right? We could play Mookless Champion, but at 3 health it's somewhat easy to kill, and we don't get to use our hero power with it right away to take advantage of that Inspire effect. So this is really something we want to use at turn 7 or later once we have some minions on the board. We could life tap to see what kind of cards we get and play an Acidic Swamp Ooze alongside it, but I think in this case we're just going to go ahead and play the Frostwolf Warlord. It's only going to get buffed once, but it's just nice to keep establishing that board and forcing him to inefficiently use mana to clear. He might have to use a Fireball here, for instance, for 4 mana to kill off this 5 health minion, which means he's again going to float that extra mana. We keep making tempo plays and taking advantage of the board while he's just spent recovering. See, that's exactly what happened. So now he floated another mana. We've had him use 2 hero powers and float 2 mana so far, clearing our board. So that's a good sign. We don't know what kind of deck this is still. I think it's probably a freeze mage. If it is, we might be in a little bit of trouble just because we don't have a ton of ways to punch through his ice blocks. So regarding our turn, again, Mookless Champion's not good here. We don't have anything to do with him and the hero power in 1 turn. We don't have enough mana, I mean. So we're going to life tap to see what we get here. And this is a pretty good answer. Acidic Swamp Ooze is fine to play, but we don't have another 2-drop to use, so we'd be wasting 2 mana. This gets us a little bit closer to fulfilling our mana. It makes our valuable Direwolf a little bit sturdier, and it deposits another body on the board. We can't Mortal Coil anything yet, and again, these spells we want to save for surprise damage towards the end of the game. So this is definitely a freeze mage. We know that now. His only freeze mages are loot hoarders, and he played a secret, so that's either Ice Barrier or Ice Block. Thankfully we have a Mortal Coil to kill this annoying little minion and see what we get. So Paladin Shredder is a great play here, and we're actually going to life tap as well. We don't want to play Acidic Swamp Ooze because it's a good chance he's going to either use a Flame Strike or a Blizzard in the next turn to hit our board. Flame Strike's a 7 mana card, right? So that's the turn it's going to likely happen. If we played Acidic Swamp Ooze and Paladin Shredder, Acidic Swamp Ooze would die for free to Flame Strike. Paladin Shredder, if it gets Flame Strike, at least it has the Death Rattle minion to pop out afterwards and help us re-establish our board. So it's okay to play that, but first we want to life tap since we're going to be floating that 2 mana. We want to know what card we get before we take a decision. And that's going to be the Ice Barrier. Yeah. I played this in the wrong spot. I wasn't paying attention while talking. The Shredder should be on the left of the Direwolf Alpha to take advantage of the buffed attack. Forgive me. Just pretend that's over there. When you're streaming and talking, sometimes you get a little distracted on minion placement in particular. So okay, we're gonna Frost Nova. We're gonna find out the Doomsayer. So we're gonna lose this board, but we actually don't. We can clear the Doomsayer, and I think that we should. And the Doomsayer indicates he didn't have the Flame Strike or a better way to clear. And we actually have a way to get rid of the Doomsayer for pretty low investment. And that is with this Wolf Rider and a Power Overwhelming. Now that's going to kill off our Wolf Rider, of course, but it could help preserve these minions. Now, against the Freeze Mage, they're trying to burn us down from 30, right? They want to hit us with a bunch of burst damage all at once. So life tapping at some point becomes risky. There's a good chance he has Alexstrasza, and he's going to use Alexstrasza to take us to 15 health no matter what. And I don't have any heals in this deck, and I don't have a lot of time, so I think I'm going to life tap for resources instead of trying to preserve my health. Because who knows what minion I might get that might be useful, and that extra damage might make the difference between winning and losing. So if he Flame Strikes here, again, we still have a little bit of a board thanks to Paladin Shredder, and he's going to be wasting some more mana. At some point, he's going to need card draw to keep up. Here's looking for... That's a bad Paladin Shredder drop. But we think that that Blizzard was probably his board clear. So what we're going to do is try to establish our board and buff it with Mookless Champion. We have just enough mana to do that with Murloc Tidehunter and Mookless. So we can play the Murloc, it's going to give us 2 minions, which is going to make the Mookless Champion buff that much better. It also allows this Novice Engineer to survive when we trade it into Thalanos. So we want to kill that Thalanos because it can do a little bit too much extra damage to our face and buff things like Blizzard again to kill off our Mookless. So we're going to do Flame Strike. Contact Flame Strike. That leaves us in a little bit of a mess. But thankfully we can actually just continue to reload the board here. We get a nice 7/7, which if he wants to kill this, he's going to have to use another Doomsayer or a Fireball plus Ping, which is a lot of mana. It wastes a lot of his burn spells, which he needs to use against our face. That's an Alexstrasza, it feels like. Oh, a Thorson, okay. So if he doesn't use a secret, there's the secret. If he didn't use a secret, we actually had a chance to burn him down here. I didn't do the math, but... So at this point we need to get rid of that Thorson. We don't want his spells getting cheaper and cheaper. But first thing we're going to do is test this secret. It's most likely another... Oh, it's an Ice Barrier. Nice. He doesn't appear to have an ice block just yet. So I have to make a decision here. I think we're going to use the Soulfire to clear the... Yeah, we can actually do this perfectly for mana's sake. I'm gonna play this first. Deposit our hand because we don't want Soulfire to waste anything. Here I actually made a mistake. I should have tested the secret with the 2/1 since I was gonna kill the Thorson with a 4 damage attack and I got rid of this minion. It's gonna cost me one face damage, which doesn't sound like much, but it could be the difference between winning and losing, so it actually does matter. If he has another Flame Strike here, we're in a little bit of trouble because he kills a lot of stuff, but we can't afford to take forever at this point. Our health is getting low. The longer the game lasts, the more likely that he has to win. He drew the ice block, so it's very difficult. He also got a free fireball there. So we can clear the Antonidas, obviously, with this minion, but 8, 12, 13, 14, we actually can pop his ice block as well. So the question is, if we pop his block, he has at least 1 fireball to start the chain of attacks. So he could fireball for 12, hit face for 5, and ping. So we have to kill the Antonidas or we're dead, because he can just fireball for 12, hit with the Antonidas. We do have the taunt. So if the Antonidas runs into the taunt, he has 12 from hand. We had a Frostbolt take us to 17. You can't Frostbolt and ping. So as long as we're actually going to pop this block and leave the Antonidas alive. And that might sound crazy to some people, but it's something we have to do to win the game. We can't let this game continue to stretch out, or we will absolutely lose. Now there's a chance we just die right here to burst damage, but there's also a chance he can't deal with all this and doesn't have another ice block since he only has 5 cards in hand. So we might just be able to win with the Soulfire out of hand. So he's drawing for that second ice block. He's not looking to kill us right now. It's a great sign. If he doesn't get the ice block, he might just be dead. That looks like it's ice block to me, based on how he's hovering with it. But it would already been in hand, so I don't think he would have drawn. So look, yes, there's the right play with the taunt. The taunt saved our life, basically. Otherwise he had exactly 18 damage. Guaranteed. From 2 fireballs, Antonidas for 17, ping for 18. The heal bot won't be enough, we have way too much damage. Looks like we're gonna win this one, boys. And gals. beating a very refined Freeze Mage with legendaries as a budget zoo deck is pretty impressive. If that's an Ice Block and he's just trolling, I'm going to be a little bit frustrated. That's the only way we lose this game. Oh, we win. So he didn't have the answers, we had the damage. We played that one pretty well. It's a very difficult deck to beat, by the way. A top meta deck, full of legendaries, all the right cards, and we're playing a super hyper budget beginner Warlock. So this shows you the kinds of decks you can beat even on a 600 Arcane Dust limit. It's pretty fantastic and impressive if you ask me. Hopefully you learned a little bit during that match too. So let's see what we get next. I just want to play about 3 or 4 games, depending on how long they are. See what kind of matchups we get and how well we do. I'm really happy with that win though. Could have been easy to lose that game if we hadn't been aggressive. Sometimes you just have to bear down and be aggressive and make them have the answers instead of playing to not lose. Sometimes you gotta play to win. So the mulligan here, we like these 1-drops a lot. We're gonna keep both just because they're so fantastic against paladins and all their 1/1 minions. These might stay alive to a few different things. They also trade well in a shielded mini bot just because they clear the shield nicely. We don't want these 4s and 3-drops just yet. The 3-drop wouldn't be too bad to keep here since we do have the coin, so we could play a Voidwalker on turn 1 and then the coin Shatters on Cleric on turn 2. But that doesn't necessarily trade all that well in a shielded mini bot. So we're going to go ahead and see what we get. I'm just going to be a little greedy with this since we do have the 2 1-drops. It gives us a lot of flexibility. So Mortal Coil is also good against Paladins again because they have a lot of 1-health stuff. And Acidic Swamp Ooze is fantastic too for things like Muster for Battle and the 4 duration weapon that you can burn with this alone. So there's no reason to coin out yet here. We might want some flexibility with that coin, and the Voidwalker's good enough board presence for now. That'll stay safe no matter what this turn.
Put this apple on your head.
Okay, so we got the Knife Juggler. I'm actually gonna sacrifice this minion and use my Mortal Coil, just because that's a really good target for it. And we can still play another minion since we have that 1-drop. Let's see what we do. If we get a Flame Imp, we'll play it instead, but no, we'll go ahead and play the Voidwalker.
Why do you call?
That Knife Juggler is really one of the biggest threats. This is probably a pretty aggressive or mid-range Paladin. It might still be a secret. Okay, so see here the Acidic Swamp Ooze is going to get insane value, as is the Voidwalker, which trades so well into these minions. So here's this. And now we're actually going to coin out the Flame Juggler, because there's a very good chance it's going to kill one of these minions for us. That's one of the reasons this card from TGT actually makes its way into this deck. On average, it's probably a little bit of a subpar card, but just in the metagame right now, it's really, really good. And see, this Voidwalker is going to essentially take 1 weapon hit and 2 minions all on its own as a 1-drop. Consecration's not great, but he still has to trade if he wants to here. And he has 4 mana on the board, and we have a really good follow-up thanks to Piloted Shredder. So we're still not too bad a shape. There's a good chance this Paladin relies on Divine Favor to refill his hand of cards, and we're going to have less cards than him most of the game. Oh, that is a bad tempo play. He just spent 5 mana with Solemn Vigil. Interesting. You don't see that one a lot, and he didn't get the benefit of it at all, so that's a really slow play for him that gives us time to establish the board. I feel pretty confident loading up the board here with Argent Horse Rider and the Warlock Trainer. He just used the Consecration. He has another one, we're really, really unlucky, but even if he does, he has to spend, 75% of his mana killing just these 2 minions. It really doesn't do anything to these 2, so it's not that great of a turn anyway.
Reporting for duty.
Okay, so he plays the Silverhand Regent. This is an unusual deck. It might be somebody else who's just a little newer to the game. Testing out some cards. He's got some interesting choices here. So, real quickly, I don't know what we're going to do with this turn yet, but one thing you should be doing when you have 2 Power Overwhelmings in hand is always counting for lethal. We have 6, 8, 9 damage on the board plus 8 damage in hand. That means we can actually hit for 17 damage, which is pretty close to lethal. The problem is we don't yet want to sacrifice any of these minions, so we're going to go ahead and play the Frostwolf Warlord instead, just because we have a lot of minions on the board, and it's going to be huge when we play it. He may not have an answer. Now from here we're actually going to trade into the Silverhand Regent. It's just too scary. It creates a lot of value. But we're going to do it this way. I think this is a little bit of a safer play. It splits our resources, forces him to make decisions, and we have 12 power left on the board even if he makes these trades, and with the power overwhelming, that's going to be lethal. So he has to do a lot here to stay alive. Even if just the Paladin Shredder lived, you know, we'd have 12 damage, so. Okay, so that's a pretty power play. That's a pretty power play. And the card draw too. So we had a lot of answers there. That's one thing Paladin's very good at, is finding answers. So that was a little unfortunate. So I think we want to press for damage here. The trades don't look that great to us. You know, we don't want to trade into a 1-1 as a 2-1. So I think we're just going to play more like Tidehunter and go face. But first we have to life tap because we have lots of mana and not a lot to do with it. So that's 12 damage plus 4 damage is 16 damage. We're not going to use it just yet. It's not lethal, right? It's 4, 8, 12, 14, 16. So we could take him to 1, but the problem is we may not have the damage to follow up, and we don't want him to know yet that he's in risk of dying. So we want to hope that one of these minions lives. If just one minion lives, we have guaranteed lethal. If he doesn't drop a Tyrian Fordring or another taunt here. Even if he does, we might have lethal, so. Okay, so that's the game. He can't kill all of our minions with that turn, and we have enough damage in hand to just push him down. So, he's not going to enjoy this, but it's just part of it. Don't need to be out with extra attacks, let's just finish it. So there, he had a lot of answers. He took care of our board a couple different times, but he had that one slow turn on turn 5 when he just played the Solemn Vigil. And that's actually what cost him the game. He just got a little too far behind on tempo. We were able to push. And then he drew into those really aggressive lethal cards at the end, which is nice. That's why they're there. They're all 1-drop, so it makes your deck far less dense, and you risk some dead draws from time to time. But when they hit and allow you to push for lethal, it's really nice. So far we're actually 3-0, right, with our deck. The first one didn't quite count, so it's really more like 2-0. But we're rolling along. It's looking really good. It feels good playing it, too. Okay, so we have a rogue here. Rogues are very strong at early game tempo. For instance, using a backstab on our Flame Imp is going to hurt, but we just have to hope they don't have that stuff. We can't play around it. We still have to load up the board. We can't just load up the board later on because something like Blade Flurry can destroy it too. So we just gotta load up and really pray that everything sticks and we're able to push them down. If they're forced to use their weapon to make trades into things like Murloc Tidehunters a lot, they're going to take a lot of chippy damage on their face, and it'll add up over time. I actually really like our hand here. There's nothing wrong in this mulligan. We have a good 1-drop. We have options at the 2-mana slot depending on what he does or what we see in the game. So there's no reason to send anything back here. Flame Imps are #1 priority, and we got it. If it gets backstabbed, it's going to feel unfortunate, but if it's able to live for a turn or two, we're going to be happy about it. Now we could play Voidwalker, but Voidwalker might be important later to protect a higher value minion against his weapon clear, so we're going to save that and just hope that this sticks. He probably kept a backstab though, and it's dead. Okay, that's not too bad. So, oh, this is great here. We can actually use the Voidwalker to protect against the Southsea Deckhand. That's what I was talking about before. So now we get the 3 damage from this. It's also protected here. He's going to have to use his weapon to kill this, but that'll die as well. And we get the second Flame Imp to really start applying pressure early. This is about the best opening we could have hoped for. We still have good follow-ups too. What's he got here? Okay, that doesn't actually... That's a good card, but it doesn't actually help him this turn. It's going to help him next turn to help... He can kill both of these, essentially, now. So we're not going to trade into this for him, because he's going to trade anyway. We want to get the extra damage out. The question is, what do we play? We have 3 2-mana cards here. 2 options, essentially. I think we want to get the Wrathguard out early just to prevent it from being hit by something that does, 5, 6, 7 attack. And it gives him a dilemma. He may have to send his weapon and that Buccaneer into the Wrath Guard to get rid of it, because it's a little scarier. Warlock Tidehunter splits our resources. He could do a really easy Blade Flurry if we played this and just clear everything. So I think the Wrath Guard's the right play there. Okay, so he's going to leave the Wrath Guard. He might have a Backstabber, as I said, to clear it. Backstab and as I said. Oh, this is a Mill Rogue. Okay, so a Mill Rogue is designed to essentially make us burn through cards as rapidly as possible. So he wants to make us draw cards until we hit fatigue, right? And then we simply die from being out of cards. His biggest asset there is Cold Light Oracle, because he can use things like Shadow Step or Gang Up to add more of these to his deck and just make us keep drawing cards and drawing cards. So this may not seem like a threat, but it's actually the biggest threat he has in his deck, and that's why we're going to clear it with the Wolf Rider here. We don't want to take our Wrath Guard down to 1 health and clear it that way, just because it dies to Fan of Knives or his weapon. It's just too easy. So sacrificing the entire body of Wolf Rider is fine, and we actually have the Voidwalker to follow up as well to give our Wrath Guard a little bit more protection. So he's pushing for 4. We've already got the Rogue down to 13. It's still very early in the game.
Mind if I roll knee? Mind if I roll
It's a slow turn from him. That's not efficient at all. We can push for 7. But we actually are going to... The Frostwolf Warlord wouldn't be too bad here, but Rogues have Sap, which could just sap this back to my hand and make me replay it without minions on the board, so it's a little bit riskier to put mana into Frostwolf Warlord against a Rogue. Whereas if he saps the Dark Iron Dwarf back into hand, we still can get value from the Battlecry second turn. So we're not going to clear both of these loot hoarders, but we are going to clear one. Prevents that from being backstabbed because it's taking damage. We can still push for the Wrath Guard. He might trade here, he might weapon up. If he weapons up, he has to use 2 out of 5 mana to kill this, and he still doesn't have clear trades here, so there's no reason to trade into both. And he really has to find an answer, because we have 8 damage, 9 damage on the board, and he has 7 health, right? So just a couple Soulfires of Power Overwhelming can win us the game anyway. If he doesn't clear. He Blade Flurries, and he's got 1 trade. So we have 4. He's out of mana. He might have up or no. Okay. So he just used our Blade Flurry, which I think means we want to load up the board with our Murlocs. But first we're going to life tap, because we might tap into lethal, right? We might get a Soulfire or Power Overwhelming that just wins us the game. And we'll have 2 spare mana if we play these anyway. You always want to tap first. Okay, so I'm actually going to Mortal Quilt, because the Leper Gnome is a little bit of a threat to the Dark Iron Dwarf. And this again might draw us into lethal. It gives us another chance, and we did. We drew into lethal. So you could have played the Murlocs there with your 4 mana, but you had a chance at lethal, so why not take it? And also preserved your Dark Iron Dwarf. So there's a lot of reasons to use Mortal Coil there over getting the full value of your mana, and we win. So we're actually 3-0 now against 3 different classes. Pretty strong ones at that. Nice looking decks. I'm going to play one more game. I was hoping to get a loss in, show what we do wrong and how we lose. So far that hasn't happened. That's fun. Hope you're still learning along the way. Either way, this will be my last game, win or lose. I think we've covered a lot of different mulligan states and gameplay decisions and focused on aggression versus clears and learned a few different things. I think you're going to have fun with the TGT Budget Warlock after seeing this video. So is this the same? Yeah, this is unfortunately the same player. That makes me a little bit sad. We're going to give him a win just because we beat him last time, and we're not going to learn anything new. We actually have a really strong mulligan, but we're going to give him the win just because we don't want to play him again. And be nice for him to get a win. This is casual mode, of course, so we're not risking ranks or anything like that. Just being nice. And we'll wait 10 seconds or so to let him queue up and see if we can find somebody different this time. Let's see now. Might be nice to get a Druid. Druids tend to have trouble with this deck. Might be nice to get a priest. Priest can probably beat us pretty regularly, given all their board clears. Oh, I was hoping for the damp druid. We got the worthy opponent instead. Okay, so it is a druid.
I must protect the wild.
Alright, mulligan decisions. We don't have the coin, which means 3 drops are especially bad. Soulfire again, not something we want on turn 1 despite its mana. So we're going to toss all this back and really hope and pray we get a 1-drop here. If we don't, we might be in trouble against the druid. The last thing we want is for them to gain a board advantage early. So the Voidwalker's nice. Acidic Swamp Ooze won't do much against the druid, but it is a body to get out guaranteed on turn 2, and that's something should never undervalue. Here we have a pretty basic curve. No tough decisions just yet. We'll see what we draw into. He's probably going to have the Living Roots, so he's playing out Darnassus Aspirant. Yep. We don't have an answer for that yet, which is unfortunate. It's nice if you can kill that as soon as possible, but we won't have a way to do that. So I have a choice here. I can play the Acidic Swamp Ooze or the Flame Juggler. Flame Juggler against Druid doesn't get as much value usually because they aren't playing 1 health minions. But we're going to play the Flame Juggler here just because we want it to ping that Darnassus Aspirant. And then if he trades the Aspirant into our Voidwalker, we can kill it next turn with the Mortal Coil and still play the Acidic Swamp Ooze. So we hope it hits the Darnassus here. And it didn't, and that's okay. We can still make a trade here if he trades. It'll still have 2 health and it's a trade option. So we were hoping for a good outcome there, but that was pretty neutral. And the Acidic Swamp Ooze didn't offer any advantages over the Flame Juggler anyway. In fact, it was a bit of a disadvantage because it still would have died trading into the Darnassus here because it only has 2 health. So here we have a couple options, right? We can play the Argent Horse Rider and run it into the Darnassus and kill it. But the problem is then we break the Divine Shield and it only has 1 health, and Druids have a very easy way to kill 1 health things, be it swipe or their hero power. What I'd rather do is actually go ahead and sacrifice this Voidwalker since this 1 health is, again, really susceptible. Run it into the Darnassus. Use our Mortal Coil to draw. We get another 2-drop, we might play that. Otherwise, the Acidic Swamp Ooze is a fine 2-drop to play. He just used a Wrath, so it's unlikely he'll be able to kill the Acidic Swamp Ooze right away. His hero power won't do anything against it. That feels like the best line of play to me. We want to use Mortal Coil first just to see what we get. 2 minions with 1 health is probably worse here than Acidic Swamp Ooze, but actually, he's not to his swipe turn just yet. He's only going to have 3 mana next turn. So even if he hero powers here, he's going to float a mana to kill 1/2 of this minion, which is going to be a tempo gain on our side and make his turn a little awkward. He won't be able to make a strong power turn if he wants to kill me. So see, that's exactly what happens. So we still get to keep a minion on the board. He had a really awkward turn. And now we have some options again. Turn 4 is his swipe turn, right? We have a lot of 1 health stuff, so it's a little bit risky, but the Argent Horse Rider would survive to swipe anyway. It allows us to chip off some damage quickly. We have the 1 mana here to float for the Voidwalker. Even if he swipes this board, right, he's only going to kill 2 minions, and they equal about 1.5 mana of value. And maybe an extra mana for the shield he clears off. So for 4 mana, he's really only going to clear a couple mana worth of value. He doesn't have the swipe there. That's fine. So, Paladin Shredder is a great minion for him. We have some choices. We could kill it with the Wolf Rider, see what he gets. That's fine. I think I'd rather just send everything to face at this point. His Paladin Shredder is probably going to run into that Voidwalker. He didn't have the swipe last turn, so I'm banking on him not having the swipe again. If he has the swipe again, we're going to be in a little bit more trouble. It'll be an awkward mana turn for him to play swipe, but he's going to get a lot of value out of it if he does. But we're going to load up the board. Druids have trouble clearing the board. And we think these minions are reasonably safe. Swipe is the only thing that hurts us here. Even that doesn't hurt us too bad. So we had to raise that attack.
Where shall I strike?
Druid of the Claw taunt is pretty tough, but we have the Soulfire here. And we can even play the Wolf Rider first. Doing that automatically because I don't want to discard it from the Soulfire. So we can run the Soulfire into the Druid of the Claw. We life tap with our spare mana. We didn't have any options, but we want to get that card for next turn. Here we're going to go ahead and keep pretending he doesn't have swipe, even if he does. If he has swipe now, we're really in trouble. But pushing for so much damage, there's a chance we can just... If he doesn't have swipe here, we might just win the game. And he's so low anyway that we might have ways to dig out a win. Okay, so he doesn't have the swipe. He's using his combo to clear minions. He's got to leave at least one minion up, which is nice for us. It's just a really bad turn for him. Oh, he's got the innervate, so he's actually able to full clear. Okay. That's a little worse for us. It's actually a lot worse, but he is taking some damage, so... So, this is an interesting predicament. I like that this happened. Soulfire is going to discard a card, right, when I cast it. I want to life tap first to see what I get. But I also want to make sure I can play everything and not discard anything. I'm actually going to use my Flame Imp. I'm in a Soulfire's face to put him to 2. Okay, and then I'm going to life tap. And that's a really strong... That's a good draw. So he has very little options now at 2 health. He either has to find a heal or a taunt. He needs something desperately. He's got to kill this minion, and he really has to kill this one too. But if he doesn't have a way to kill it or taunt, the game is just over. He might have something like an Ancient of War. In that case, we're done. We need the other Soulfire. Living Roots is a good clear. So now we're going to be digging for charge minions and Soulfire. That doesn't do us any good. We're going to life tap. We're going to go ahead and play these. He can clear both, but we don't want him hitting our face and risking us dying, so we have to load up the board even though I know they're both going to die. It's a preserval method. We're buying draws with our hero power right now. We want to get 1 or 2 draws. Oh, that's trouble. He just healed for quite a bit there with Ancient Allure. So now we actually dig in really hard, and it's very unlikely. See, this would have won us the game if we top decked this last turn when he had 2 health. So that's a turn late.
Don't worry, loves. The cavalry's here.
Coil's a fantastic draw to kill off this Lothab. I really wish I could play that Paladin Shredder, but I can't. We're 1 mana short. That would maybe win us the game. This came a turn later, we would have won the game. That's just RNG, that's fine. He's making the right plays. He didn't deserve to lose just yet. So this game, even though he's at 5 health, is pretty bad for us. There's a chance he just has the lethal. Because that's Druids, right? They have lots of combos. Swipe face to clear. Yeah, so see, we die this turn. We don't actually have an out. If he'd left that minion up, we could have lived, but... Yeah, that's the game. We don't have an out. Our only out here is that... Well, there is no out. That can't even be a Doomsaber. Doomsaber. So, very narrow win. 1 turn away from lethal, 1 draw away from lethal. I think we played fine, but sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. He's got the combo to finish, so we're really, really dead. It's alright. We never concede. Real games, anyway. Could have been some great VM if he killed himself accidentally, but... He's really sorry. It was a well-played game. Nice deck. Just standard mid-range Druid. It's a tough matchup for him, so it's nice that he won. Okay, well, that's it for me in the Learn to Play session on the TGT Budget Warlock. I hope you really did learn to play. I think we ran through some nice scenarios and some good mulligans. some nice gameplay decisions. I know I learned a little bit myself, so hopefully you're out there experimenting with the TGT Budget Warlock, and this video has helped you master it in a way and continue to improve and get better. I really appreciate you taking the time to watch. Thanks so much, and until next time, game on.